Okay, my friends, this is going to be interesting. Asteroid Bennu, they picked up a sample, they brought it back to Earth 3.5 months ago. It arrived on Earth. I made my prediction as to what they would bring back, and I'm quite certain it's going to be correct. It's taken them 3.5 months just to get the cap open on the container. Something went wrong with the bolts, they couldn't get them loose. So anyway, all they had to really do is call Boeing, make it help them. Okay, my outstanding friends, another shocker du jour. I'm just going to go right for the big opening line here. Asteroid Bennu is biological. Let's look into it. They brought a sample back from this. They landed on there, grabbed something, brought it back to Earth, and it took them 3.5 months to get the capsule open. They couldn't get the capsule open. I'm not kidding you. Okay, so this is what they brought back from Bennu, and this is some scraps that they have that were here and they didn't realize, and here they are. Now, I can tell you right now, if they took these scraps and analyzed them, just did a metal analysis of them, I'm going to show you what will be in them, because I'm going to tell you right now, that's blood, because Bennu is a heart. I'm going to show you, this is a heart. These are the main valves in the heart. This right here is the tendinous portion that locks the heart muscle in so that it can anchor into something. This right here is not a crater, it's a tube coming out, and there's other ones. That's a tube coming out too. There's a ton of tubes, and inside these valves are where the heart goes one way and it comes the other way out of the other valve. Now, that's Bennu. Now look at this. This is Psyche. It's another heart. It's identical. No difference whatsoever. This one, though, has been smelted to some degree because it's basically glossed over, like it's been, like this thing here was burnt up. This is a little piece of an a meteorite. You know, they burn up and they get shiny-ish looking, which this is another little a meteorite. Now, this is a heart. There's the valves. It's got the same plumbing here as the other one, and it's got all metals. Hearts are saturated with metals. That's why I'm going to tell you what they got from Bennu. Is I'm going to show you identical. I can tell you exactly. Now, if you can't see the similarity there, I don't know where your eyes are. You see the two of them? Identical. And guess what? That's exactly what a heart looks like, because this is it right here. There is no difference. All right, so let's look at the three of them side by side. All right, there they are. You see, this has, and they have all kinds of tubes coming on them. It's not just this. This is where the main valves are, but all the other tubes are in there as well that are coming out, sticking here and there. You see them? They're up in this top end where the big valves are. All of this stuff breaks off at the top, it seems to be, the hearts I've seen. And you get right down to where the valves are. The valves are kind of down inside. You see this here? This is what a heart looks like. A real, I mean, obviously it's a heart. Now, this is where your main serious plumbing is, just as the main serious plumbing is right here on Bennu. Now, so here we got our two main tubes. This is white, all right, and it's tendon. And you can actually see the little stripes of tendon coming down. You see it? And that locks this in so that the smooth muscle is around the other side, but it can pump, and this is what holds it so it's got something to grab into. That's what tendons do. So let's see what the tendon is on a real heart. There it is right there. This is what locks it in. Now the muscle here goes, it's like a big rope. It spins around a circle, and it anchors here. There's the big main one. Now this is sort of gooey, and it's glue and so forth, basically, to hold all this so that it can move around and be real flexible, but it's still secure and so forth. So let's look at that, where this would be on Bennu. Right? This is where it would be. You see this? This is the color of blood. You know, red and yellow is blood. That's the two different. There's three different actually states of blood. There's the red blood, and then it goes into the middle-ish between the red and the totally exhausted blood, which is black or blue. In the body, it's blue. In mud fossils, it turns black. But this is the anchor of the tendon, and it's the other. It goes like this on the other side. And these are the vein valves. And that's a tube. That's a tube. A bunch of these are tubing. This is not all craters. I'm not saying there's no craters here, but I'm saying a lot of them are not craters. And the same thing on Psyche. You see that big tube, that thing right there? There's three big main ones in the heart. All right, there's three big main ones right here, and then there's another one here, and this one has a different. This is where your vein blood is, the blue. All right, but there's a lot of plumbing going on in the heart. There are a lot of stuff. There's holes and this and that going on everywhere, and there's a lot of arteries running down. These are also, you know, when they burn up, you'll be seeing cavities in all these little tiny blood vessels, and these things here. You're going to see holes in there too as it cooks in space. And the comets do the same thing. A comet, when it comes through space, it doesn't have nothing, you know, there's no trail to it until it gets close to the sun. Now, they always thought it was just blowing dust off it. No, it's smoking out from blood vessels. And I can prove this. I might as well do it right now. All right, this is biology. This is Comet 67P. They had a lander come up on here and land and sample the material up here, and it is all biological. They said it's all organic. It was their words. It's biological. I looked at the spectral analysis of it. Now, this is just all dust that's eroded out from these tendons and muscles. This bundle right here is a bundle of, I believe it's tendon. It may be muscle, I'm not sure. These are tendons. You see these little stripes here? Anybody who's been following the mud fossils knows exactly. You see, first of all, that bundle there didn't just happen for no reason. And these little pinchy lips looking things are from these bundles that are coming out. These are tendon straps. All right, this is the enthesis. All right, I have a bunch of other shots of this. So this is 67P. You don't see any dust coming off of here. You don't see nothing. Once it gets into the bright sunlight, it literally cooks the comets. All right, I show this a million times. This is a hip joint, I believe. And this is the ball and socket, basically. And this is the hip joint, and it's fractured off. And this is 67P, just shot from a different angle. You don't see anything smoking off here. All right, this is what happened to 67P. It fractured here. Some of them fracture real close up to the neck. Some of them fracture here. This is a 67P fracture. Now, I showed you how that thing fractured, and then I showed you the tendons that are coming up into it, and that muscle bundle, or probably is tendon. It's a complicated little device. It has to twist and do all these kind of things for you to move around. So there's tendon, and I don't know if there's any muscle right here. Of course, the muscle starts up here. All right, so we know if we have a hip and we need blood. Well, where's the blood come from? Well, here it is right here. This right here is an artery. That's what's shooting out of there. That's not just dust blowing off of there. It's being cooked out of the artery, and I'll show you a close-up of the artery. Now, what is all this little spritzing going on here and shooting this way and that way and over this way and that way? What's going on here is you have a huge blood supply to supply everything. It's called your artery, your main artery. And then it breaks off into branches that are little, blood vessels. And they distribute the blood to everywhere. And then there's little capillaries that go. So it gets smaller and smaller. This is where the real main supply was attached in this hip. And here's where these little tiny blood vessels feed up here, which would have been some muscle up here. This is where muscle starts. So this is where there's a lot of tendon, and then where the muscle was up here, I believe, I'm sort of guessing to be honest with you, but I do know when a tendon goes up, eventually it hits a muscle. So, and they have to have blood, and that's why they're coming, all these different ones. Now, why isn't it smoking off of here? It's not smoking off of here. It's not, because it's not saturated with blood. These are blood vessels. They're literally pools of blood in there almost. And this thing is the same thing. Now look at the size of this, thing. But first of all, you see this little anchor all the way around? This was locked in the guy's body somewhere, or whatever creature it was. It looks like a hip bone to me, but it could be something different, but it's very similar. Now, this is the size of that main tube. Look at this. I calculated this out to be, I think, almost 500 feet, 480 feet across. Well, I figured out there was 160 meters or so here. So it's close to 500 feet across here. That's the main artery. This thing is absolutely stunningly large. All of these little balls here, they call them dragon balls. Well, they're not dragon balls. Those are where the blood infuses into the body of the creature. And these are boiling off in the sunlight. You don't see it now because it's not hitting it directly in the sunlight. When it gets absolutely directly, it smokes off because it's literally being cooked. And they did say that. The gases were the same basically as the ones that come off your gas grill. And this is just gigantic. Look, this is Raleigh, North Carolina. That's 67p. It'd be a bad day to be hanging around in Raleigh. Now, so you saw all these things. You saw the heart, you saw Bennu, you saw Psyche, you saw the fact that they have this blood back here on Earth now. And I'm saying it's blood. So what is in blood? Well, this is what's in blood right here. All right. Now, this was a study they did to find out what is in your blood. Now, let me see. I have another shot of this. Hold on. All right, here's what it is. This was a metallic profile of whole blood and plasma. 106 healthy volunteers. And this goes back to 2013. Blood is the same blood today as it was back then. So they did all of this, and what they wanted to do was find out what was in the blood. What's in blood? What metals? What's in the quantity and so forth. So they did a whole blood and plasma. Blood is the real thicky stuff. Plasma is just the fluid. A multi-element analysis performed after 2.6 milliliters acidic dilution, butanol 0.5%, nitric acid 1%. So all they have to do is use this same setup here to test the stuff that they brought back from Bennu. And you only need a couple of little pieces, a little tiny bit. You do this, and for the plasma, the indium and rhodium, internal standards, a validated water calibration was used for plasma analysis, matrix standard, All I care about is all of these panel of 26 elements. All right, and here they are. And basically, these are the transition metals that are in blood. Almost all of that is the transition metals that are in blood. There's a lot of iron in blood. I don't even think they show the iron here. I didn't see it. But there's a ton of iron in blood, and most of the blood metal is iron because that carries the oxygen around. But they describe all these other metals that are in your blood that, you know, they're not something that they normally look for. They're doing an analysis of it. And I'm going to tell you right now, the stuff they brought back from Bennu is going to have all of those metals in it. All right, now there are going to be some changes done, like they had a memory effect using the torch plasma mercury. So there could be a little bit of difference in this, but not much. And they will have almost all of those metals will be in there. And maybe just isotopes will be a little bit different because it's being irradiated. You know, it's been irradiated out there. If you look at Psyche, that's had some serious chemistry changes done to it. You know, it's boiled off all the cheap stuff. This is almost looks like metals, and they did say this could be worth billions and trillions of dollars. All they're interested in is the money. That is a heart that has partially smelted, and smelting takes 3,000 degrees. All right, they have electric furnaces to do smelting here on Earth, and like I have meteorites here, and they've turned into iron. All right, they've turned into iron. Iron it attracts magnets. It's not magnetic itself. Like you can't take a piece of iron and stick it to a piece of iron and it will stick to it. No, but you take a magnet and you will stick it to the iron. It will stick to the iron. So that's the key. These things have been turned into metals, which are primarily iron. If there was primarily iron in the blood, which is primarily blood, is iron. That's why you get all these iron meteorites. And there's blood in the center of iron meteorites. You want to see that? Of course you do. You see that? That's an iron meteorite. All right, now you see all these different colors. It's not just iron. It's all of those colors in the blood that I just showed you, all those different... Well, hold on. Before we get into this, you better understand transition metals. All of these different colors are transition metal colors, and these are the things that are in your body. These are transition metals. These are what carry things around using these oxidation states, those little charges to carry molecules in, drop them off, pick something up. All right. Iron brings oxygen everywhere and picks up the carbon dioxide, does all that stuff. And all these other things do other picking up and delivering. They're called ligands, and they attach to the metal core. But what I want you to understand is all these different colors. And when they are all in your blood, and when you get an iron meteorite like this, and you etch it with the acid a little bit, you see all these different colored crystals in there, because every one of them forms a different color crystal, all right, and a different color metal, basically. You see these two spots right here? There's your blood, and this is an iron meteorite. All right, you see the top one? This blood red. Blood red. That's blood with a B-L-O-O-D, red. And this is black because it's vein blood. All right, and they all have them. I have them right here in my shop with veins and arteries in them. The biggest meteorite that they ever found, I believe, iron meteorite, was this Willamette, which they stole from the Indians. Right there, that's a lung. That's iron is blood. Blood is saturated in lungs and hearts and livers. Very, very saturated. They will smelt and turn into iron meteorites. You see that spot right there? That spot right there is where there was a little an artery that brought the blood into the rest of the heart. You see it? I got another shot of it. I don't know if it's any better. That's not bad right there. You can see the blood's still there. The red is your red blood. I got another shot of it, but I don't think it's any better. This is right up close. You see it right there? So, you know, these things, everything out there. And I haven't found one single thing. Omaro Maro is a finger. Avi Loeb won't talk to me. Nobody will talk to me about any of this stuff because I have the evidence to show that they're just wrong about everything they're saying. And when they're wrong, they just get real quiet. Stay quiet. There's no interaction. Like even here on Mars, I sent all this stuff to NASA. This is on Mars. This is biology. That's an artery, and that's the vein on top. These are the little blood vessels that are going in to service these sarcomeres, which are these muscle sarcomeres, these blocks. All right, all of this red, dusty stuff is the runoff of the fluidy sort of stuff that does the pulling of these connective tissues. That's what's going on there. These blocks pull. I'll show you that. I have all this stuff. I've done it literally hundreds of times, and you don't get anywhere with anybody. So I'm just not going to stop. I should have given up long ago, but I'm just not going to do it. And this is what these sarcomeres are. They're up on Mars. They're on Earth. They're in Petra. These are in Petra, and the size of those in us. This is a electron microscope to show this. You see these? These are those little lines that come across. This red stuff here is the stuff that eroded out of there. What happens is with the sarcomeres, they pull in, these pull together, and it comes down to this size instead of this size. And there's a bazillion of them, so you get a pretty good throw on a mussel. That's what sarcomeres are. And they erode right here, because that's the cheap stuff, cheap stuff, cheap stuff. Tough, 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 tough. Those are the connective tissues. And this is precisely what you see once they erode away, and they become this way right here. That's it. And this is the cheap stuff that ran out. And this is the provider of the energy to do all this stuff, which is the artery. Now guess what Petra is? Petra is carved into an artery. You think I'm kidding? I'll show you. It is. What they made Petra out of is an artery, and carved it just like clay. And the sarcomeres are right on the sides of it, run all the way up the side, the whole face, and the whole area there of Petra. That, my friends, is basically a gigantic blood clot. These, my friends, are the sarcomeres. Remember, they had one side of a striped yolk and then the other side was different. These still have all of their fluidy sort of clayish stuff into it, because on Mars they erode right out. There's no moisture there. They just, anything that is erodible, it sort of just dusts out. Here on Earth they don't do that, but this is an artery, and they just used it like putty. These are the sarcomeres, and let me show you. I got more shots. Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you on that one easily. This is inside that treasury. This is nothing more than connective tissue and bodily tissues, bodily fluids, all that stuff. And this is inside of Petra. Now, Petra in its hugeness is here. You see that? That's Petra. All right, let me come in a little better on this. You see Petra right there? Let's see a little closer, Petra. You see it? Here's Petra. What's this going here this way? What's going out this way? And what's this coming this way? Those are blood vessels. This was the artery that fed all those. All this stuff is sarcomeres. You see them up here? The same thing that right on the side of Petra. All above it, all sarcomeres. And then up above, they get into the connective tissue. And the connective tissue at Petra inside is, well, I'm not showing any here. Well, it's connect. Well, hold on. All right, there's the split of it. This is Petra down below, and then up inside they carved into it to where all this connective tissue goes. Because you got muscles, but muscles don't just lay around doing nothing. They have to be connected to something. This is the connective tissue that anchors the muscles in, and they're usually anchored with some big balls that they lock in inside of the tissues so that they can't pull out, and that's what anchors tendons. But muscles are these sarcomeres, and tendons reach out and are mineralized, and they start to become part of the muscle, and then it's all one unit. So you got the tendon, and it fuses itself into the muscle, and then they work together. The muscle does a lot of this. The tendon just does a tiny little bit of that. You know, I actually started out here, I was going to do the microscope and everything on the grip skin, my giant human ones that had DNA tested. This is the fingertip. All right, it's 36 inches from here to the very end over here. It has a fingernail, and it also has fingerprints on the side where I had to break it off. And I'm going to show you something. Remember, this is the vein and the artery. That little pad is the pad that goes between bones so they don't crush each other. And again, the fingernail, and not in bad shape either. And it was completely intact, and I smashed there, and it came off. And I have a piece here, and I'll show you that. Now, this was what I broke off. And you see these little dots here? And these little stripes? That's what you got here. The fingernail came right here. Now on your same fingers, if you look, you have a tiny little slip of skin, and then it goes right into the fingerprints, right around the very edges of your fingernails. And that's what this was here. The fingernail was way over here. Now, these are the sweat pores. You see up in here, sweat pores? We're going to be looking at this in a microscope. And they are on your fingerprints, and these are the sweat pores. Now, this came right off just exactly like this. It just popped right off. I smacked it, and it just fell right off like a scab. And as a matter of fact, this is it right here. This is it's broken, and pieces are missing now. But it's up. I think it's somewhere like right around here. Yeah, that's the sweat pores right there. The other piece is gone. But anyway, it popped right off there. You see that? It's just like glued. It was just like glued on there. And I have another one here that's even bigger than this one. Again, this is the sweat pores. This is where the fingernail came, right to there. That's where the fingernail, and it is exactly where the fingernail came. And that's the fingerprints, and it's this thick is the skin. Now, I have another one here that's this thick. I'm telling you right now, that's a fingerprint. That's the width of the fingerprint ridge, is these thick. You see this like here? Let me show you something. You see this? That's these right here. That allows your finger to move and jiggle around. This is the bottom, literally identical to the bottom that's on that. It's just a glue. And it has like this layer right here is this layer right here. You see it? And this layer right here is this whole layer here is the top, but then there's that little blackish little strip across the top, and then going down into the folds. That's the width of the finger ridge. All right, this one here, my thumb is about as wide as one fingerprint ridge. And this was 3 feet long, the fingertip. Now this, I think, might be from the guy that had this hair follicle. I'm trying to figure out if this hair follicle would work with this skin. Because don't forget, this is on your finger. Your finger skin is much thicker than all the rest of the skin in your body. So the other skin would have been much thinner where the hair follicle came. And this hair follicle is just like this. Let's think about this. All right, so here's your hair follicle. All right, this is grip skin, so this is really heavy duty skin. This skin will be fairly thin. Now again, there's your erector pili muscle attaches right there. That allows your hair to stand up on end. Of course, the hair comes out through the top. That is the sebaceous gland right there. You see it? And these are the two blood supplies at the bottom, the vein and artery. And of course, that's the root ball coming straight up. Now, is that going to work with skin? It would be probably the skin on your body. It might be about that thick. It's not going to be like this. This is really heavy duty skin on your fingers and your feet and so forth. So you're going to have about this thick. Would that work with this hair follicle and this grip skin? I'm trying to figure out how big this guy would have been and how big this would equate to in a guy's body. But this, I'm telling you right now, I see no other, and as a matter of fact, there's a sweat pore right there. And I looked at it, and I'll look at it in a microscope, and you see it. That right there is a sweat pore. All right, same. You know, it's hard to see, but it's there. And then I got a whole batch of other stuff. I was going to show all of this stuff today, but I don't think there's going to be time for that, because I want to go into the microscope. I've got meteorites here. I got the ones that turned into metal, like this one right here. You see this? That is a bony meteorite. This is blood. That was all blood, probably from what do you call it, the marrow in a bone. And this is bony stuff. Didn't even burn up. But it came through. It's so hot in the ionosphere. It comes through thousands of degrees, over 3,000 degrees it takes to turn that into iron. And that's all it is the blood. This thing's very light, but the blood part itself turned into iron. And you can't do that on Earth without a furnace to smelt. This is smelting. Smelting happens only in extremely high temperatures. Usually they use coke, which is derived down from coal to give it, it's almost like charcoal instead of wood. Wood burns at a certain temperature, charcoal burns much hotter. And same thing here. Coal burns at a certain temperature, coke burns much hotter, and it is what they need to make steel, to turn iron, turn these metals molten and smelt them. And then they become, magnets will stick to them, because now they're iron. See, I have a whole batch of them here. Here's another one. This is a little lung. You see it? It's turned into a piece of iron. And I can show you this is a lung, and it even has the spur lock on it, which latches the lung into position. And this foamed up like crazy with a catalase test. So there's still active enzymes in this, but it's now turned into iron. Little tiny lung. I have another one that's even smaller than this. Same thing as a lung. All right, so I think I'm going to leave it at this. Don't forget, the only reason these things smoke off is because they're being cooked by the sun, the irradiation of the sun. It's burning them and smoking them right off. Electrons are extremely invasive and make things, evaporate and smoke and burn and fuse and destruct. They are, and that's what's coming out of the sun, is primarily charged particles. And charged particles hit anything that has fluid in it, and it makes it just spit out gases. And they tested these gases, and they are organic. They're biological. And so was the stuff. They landed a lander on it. It's called a Philae lander. I think I told you this. And the European Space Agency, this picture's from 2015. And I knew about all this. I tried to contact them. I said, can't you see the biology? Don't you understand biology? Don't you have anybody there that can look at the biology? I mean, how could you miss this? How could you possibly miss it? It's just the mind misses it, because the mind can't handle it. That's a hip. This is a broken piece right off here. It's exactly identical to a hip. It's shooting out the blood right in the same places. It's a hip broken right off of there. That's it. And if you know how to look at all the anatomy and where the blood is and everything, and do I have another one here? No, I guess I don't have the other one. Well, there's this. But you've got a bunch of places that feed blood, primarily up to muscles and so forth, but they run through the bones and all through in here. And that's why you're seeing that huge artery blowing out up there. All right, this is apparently somewhere in here is the femoral artery, has a deep branch called the profunda femoris. It sends two vessels that go through the hip joint capsule. These vessels are the main blood supply for the femoral head, which I showed you. The femoral head, is right here. and that's the main blood supply. But you also have to have blood supplies for all the other biology that's around it, but it doesn't take, this is the main blood supply. So I think I've made my case. All right, I love you all. It's time that we start looking at reality, and my next one is going to be on what I wanted to start out doing was all of these under the microscope and do some catalase tests on them and try to figure out how big these things would have been. And I think this could be, these two guys could have been part of one guy. Who knows? We're going to play around and see what we think. All right, I love you all. Bye.